Yep, yep.
All right, start recording. What I'm thinking is we just talk, we just do what we're
Yeah.
doing, and then I'll cut it down and edit it into an episode for YouTube later. So we'll stream it. It'll be up in long form, or there'll be a more concise short form version available, which we can do, which we can get
Yeah, dude.
into. Nick's in the chat. Excellent.
I'm in the chat.
Okay, so before we get going, let's click one button here. Settling scores, episode 1, team types and weapon profiles. Do we want to do a quick introduction and let everybody know what we're doing here, what we're aiming to achieve, and who we are as as people?
Yeah, bro.
Welcome to the Party Mansion.
Yes,
We're just three cool guys looking for other cool guys.
to hang out in our party mansion.
Yeah.
Brian, would you want to start with you, dude? Do you want
Yeah,
to
dude.
get in there, tell everyone who you are, what you're doing, why we're doing this from your point of view?
Yeah, dude. I'm Brinesy. Basically, the reason we're doing this is to improve my skills.
It's all for you.
It really is. These guys really...
We're just
they've got it
passengers.
down pat.
We're just passengers on this journey.
I'm like their prototype.
The protege.
Protege, that's it. That's
More of a savant.
Yeah, I've gone balls deep with buying Kill Team.
Yes, you have, dude. You really have. It's been impressive.
Literally building some Ratlings right now while eating a pizza and
Lovely.
drinking a Carlton Dry. So
Wow, product placement in a podcast. Look at
Not
this guy.
sponsored.
I'll be pretty much a follower of these two, Nick and Nick. Just
Oh.
following whatever they do. You know,
That's. I feel like that's not entirely true, Brian. So you're not just a follower. You're an integral piece of the puzzle.
that's right. Yeah, I'm like the
Pillar.
glue.
A pillar.
I'm
Yeah.
not an Aaron, but I
Oh
am
my
the
god.
glue.
Poor Aaron. Poor Aaron. Okay.
That was-
Before
We always
this
need an Aaron.
before this gets completely off the rails and I have to edit everything out, Nick, introduce yourself. Tell me
We
what
should
you're
probably
doing. Tell me why you're
differentiate
doing.
ourselves somehow. Maybe I can be called something completely different. We'll work
Superior
on it.
Nick. Superior.
No. Something cool, maybe.
Something
Super
Daredevil or
Nick.
something, I don't know.
Daredevil.
Yeah, I'm other Nick. I am also a bit of a war gamer with these guys. I played, mostly just played a lot of 40k, so I can tackle that perspective. And if any of the players are jumping from a 40k perspective, I can help bridge a little bit of the language because it is a different game. It's not Warhammer Light as I thought. It is completely different.
But
Yeah.
the profiles and stuff are the same. So you understand
similar.
like a bolt rifle and you understand like a flamer or whatever it is, where Briansy and I are very much just like, oh, that sounds cool, before half our team gets disintegrated by it.
Yeah. There are certain constants, I guess, certain lore constants and flavors that have to keep going through within the rules.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good fun. So we're just here, we're learning, and I'll pass the mic over to other Nick.
Okay, lesser Nick here. Very much the instigator in this whole thing. Whenever we start a new game, my first thing is like, okay, what do I need to do? And I Google, and Kill Team just has nothing available. So we're gonna try and set a standard for beginner content, and that's the whole crux of this. Is like, when you start this game, it's overwhelming. You can read the data cards and you can understand the mechanics of certain things from the rule book, but it doesn't actually tell you how to like play the game and like what you need to evaluate and stuff like that. So we've done a little bit of wargaming in the past. Briansy, Nick, and myself have done some Song of Ice and Fire. We've done some a little bit of Moonstone, a bit of Mordheim. Nick, as he said, did some 40k. So yeah, it's really just a matter of like, we kind of get the concepts of what is involved in a war game, but applying it to a specific system becomes like its own little nuanced thing. So that's what we're here for, and that's what we're all about. Very excited to give this a go and see how we go with it. But yeah,
It's good to point out that if you are reading the rulebook and you're confused, you're not alone.
no,
We've played a lot of
absolutely
games,
not.
and this is one of the most inaccessible rulebooks and core light rules that are kind of out there right now.
And
So you're not alone.
even the language, like when they talk about in the government, they talk about like you need to communicate with a language that's like at a particular reading level, and like the Warhammer rulebook's so overdone with how it explains things and how like the wording that's used that it's like you read it 3 times and you're still like, well, still got no idea. So we're going to cover a little bit of that stuff as we go as well. But for now, we'll just be doing kind of general, more rounded kind of things that will help everybody get an idea and a feel for the game. So yeah, is everybody happy to get into it? Have we missed anything?
I think we're good.
We game with another player as well.
We do game with Fabian, who's I'm assuming too cool to be involved with this. We'll have to see.
I actually think he's had a little bit of a meltdown.
Yeah, oh my God. yeah.
We have no shame, unlike Fabian. He feels it.
We've definitely also been putting in a lot of games, and poor Fabi hasn't been keeping up. He's got a decent job and a new baby, so he's got commitments.
Yeah, she's very cute.
She is adorable. Okay, all right. So this is a Kill Team series, obviously. If you're here for other games, you might find 1 or 2 things potentially handy, but the majority of this is going to be Kill Team related. The first thing to look at when you're getting into Kill Team is what team do you want to play? And some of them, like me and the Tau, for example, I just thought, oh, they look cool, I'm getting them. But that doesn't necessarily explain the style of the game that you're going to be playing or what you're going to be playing. I think with the Kill Team, and you guys can weigh in on this as well, we have 4 primary kind of archetypes, team archetypes, that work on a bit of a cross-section from Elite to Horde, which is small numbers and very good stats to large numbers and poor stats. And then going from left to right, we kind of have shooting teams right through to melee teams. What we've done is we've just thrown up a couple of examples on this graph just to kind of show you the spread. You can find teams that go any which way in terms of melee, shooting, Horde, or Elite. So you can kind of have a feel and think about what you prefer and then pick a team that suits that. But if you're going to play something that you think just looks cool, just be aware that it might kind of pigeonhole you into a particular kind of play style that you may not necessarily agree with. Like the Tau are very much shooting, and they've got a lot of you need to apparently to be a tremendous pilot to get them to work, which I'm not. So I just spent the first 5 or 6 games just losing every single time, which is awesome. It's like, why do these guys suck so much?
Why am I so bad at the game?
Yeah. How can I? Everyone's new, and I'm just getting slammed. So yeah, did you guys want to add anything here, just in terms of feel and styles of teams? The other dimension to this graph, which I couldn't produce in PowerPoint, was difficulty, which would kind of be the third dimension. Obviously, some teams are much easier to understand than others.
Yeah, some of them will have a higher ceiling than others for sure.
Yeah, I think elite teams are a lot easier to manage because they're smaller.
Yes,
number.
Absolutely. Much less tricks. You don't have to depend on other models as much.
And they're a little bit more mobile, a little bit more. Their wounds are stronger than your Horde or those I guess the Tower, really.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. I've got some cool pictures, hopefully, that we can use to show the stat differences between the teams. So, all right, let's have a look at shooting to begin with then. So this guy here, the Scout Tracker, I've selected as our generic operative. I found that he, out of every operative I've seen, is
right.
Apart from the abilities track enemy and Auspex scan, this is your bread and butter operative here, where we've got APL2, so he can make 2 actions per activation, 6-inch movement right in the middle of the kind of from 5 up to 7 inches, which is what most teams can accomplish. a 4-up save, which means he's saving on 4, 5, or 6 when he rolls, and then 10 wounds. Very much a bread and butter unit. Bolt gun, once again, very much bread and butter. 4 attacks, so you're rolling 4 dice. You need 3, 4, 5, or 6s to hit. And then for every normal hit, he's doing 3 damage. And for every crit, he's doing 4 damage. He has no special weapon rules, so very much just basic. This is your bread and butter. This is pretty much what every guy's going to look at. So when we're considering shooting, we don't consider this guy necessarily a shooter just because he's not bringing anything to the shooting game that is very exciting or which would make him kind of specialize in that arena. However, when we get through to our Jaeger Riflekin guy here, this is where we start to see all the kind of fun stuff. Nick, did you want to run through, dude, the weapon profiles? Yeah, and just
read it off. I will say previously with the last guy, the thing that makes Kill Team a little bit different as well from things like 40k is that guy with the profile 4334.
Yep.
As we would say in the biz, it can still be swingy, so it can a pepper like a very lucky roll with a bad save can just delete a Space Marine, which is the interesting thing about the game, which is that if it's cruelly crazy and things roll nicely, the ceiling for how much damage it can do can be quite high and devastating, and that's even just with the basic guys. It's always important to remember that, guys, that like the pepper shots can be somewhat useful as well. But that was definitely the most basic profile. For this guy, we got a little sniper guy. So we have the Magna Coil, which we play Votann. This is a Votann guy. So conceals is 4-2-3-3. With devastating 3, heavy, piercing 1, silent, and concealed position. This is where we start getting a lot of words. So, it's... I won't go over what each thing exactly does, but more so, if you're a sniper, you're just not going to move with the heavy rule, so you're not going to be able to move, imagine like literally a sniper in position. With the Magna Coil, if we're moving, mobile, we're going to have heavy, reposition only, and piercing 1. And Magna Coil stationary, devastating 3, heavy, piercing 1. So what this effectively means is that if we're moving, our attack gets a little bit worse. If we stay stationary, we get our big hit, and we get basically once per battle concealed position. So as if the sniper has been waiting this whole time to shoot. So this is a pretty nice profile.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering, like, the crit damage is so low. Well, that's because of the devastating 3. So if you roll a 6, you automatically deal 3 damage. So it works out really well when you do the maths that like the crit rolls will help you just get through the damage without them having to make a save.
Yeah, and then obviously the piercing as well takes away a potential save from the opposition. So you standard, always roll 3 dice. The piercing's going to just remove one of them dice immediately, so it's down to 2 dice. So when you're rolling 4 at 2 up and you only got 2 potential saves, then in theory you should be hitting with all 4 dice generally. And if you do so, 2 are going to go through, which just means that you can more reliably put damage on in a shoot action than you could with the previous guy, who's kind of going to be a bit, like Nick said, a bit more swingy. Sometimes you might hit on all 4 dice, sometimes you might not hit on any of the dice. On an average kind of plane, he's probably going to hit with 2 dice, and you've got 3 opportunities then to save them 2 dice, which means that there's a good chance that damage may not go through.
Yeah, and it's good to look through your team that you choose, or your brand new teams. Each team usually has a big, heavy gun, maybe 2. Heavy guns with like this massive shootable. So pretty much reliably, every team has 1 big gun. And that can look like, it'll have heavy to restrict it, but, it can be piercing 1, piercing 2, dev 3, dev 4, balance, ceaseless. So yeah, each kind of team has a really big heavy hitter, but as you can see, the heavy rule, which just means that, if you can't move when you shoot, or heavy reposition means you can only do a reposition action, it just makes it a bit harder for you to get that shot off.
And then with the shooting teams as well, generally you're going to have, as Nick said, there'll be one guy that can really slap. But a shooting team would have a number of operatives that have no limit on their range of their guns. Generally will have some kind of weapon rule like piercing or severe or rending, something along them lines that's just allowing when they shoot to more reliably do damage in that shoot action compared to other operatives. Brian, do you want to, I've got some points here, strengths and weaknesses. Do you want to help run through why shooting teams, or what makes shooting teams good and what makes them weak? And we can have a bit of a discussion around that as well.
Yeah, dude. Well, always being on the opposing side of a shooting team. You just get obliterated.
How does it feel? How does it
feel? I get destroyed a lot by shooters. But like for this Riflekin, I think the best thing about this like you said, heavy hitter, it doesn't matter what you roll. If you roll a crit, you're going to get this extra 3 damage every time.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Really, it's 6 damage on a crit, potentially, unless they roll critical save successes. But looking at your first strength there, the range allows you to apply pressure from the first turn point. Well, I think a lot of shooting teams can either, when they do their scout ploy, and that we'll talk about that later, but they can position quite well in turning point 1. So they could use a reposition somewhere, or like the Riflekin, the Jaegers can do, they can reposition as their strategic gambit. So getting them to position pretty fast is really important. And I think the really good thing is if you this team, particularly shooting teams, will have sort of like a horde, like a mass amount of
like many operatives.
Yeah, operatives out there. So they'll be the ones just you spread them out. You'll be able to just start taking down other operatives, enemy operatives on the other side. So getting that positioning in turning point 1, and then off you go. You can just pick off anyone that you want to. And I guess if you really wanted to, shooting teams, you're gonna pick a tac op that's going to allow you, like Implant is a really easy one to use with shooting teams.
Yeah, yeah. I think surveillance as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And like looking at this one here with your Magna Coil rifle, a lot of shooting teams, especially if they have a heavy shooter, will have multiple ways that you can be able to use that weapon. And like Nick said before, you can see there that concealed, mobile, and stationary allows for different damage to go off on enemy operatives. So it's really, I think, really good in that way. And especially with this Riflekin that you're showing up here, the first time that it shoots, if it's in that concealed position, it's going to be able to perform the shoot action during the battle. Like, it's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
So the weaknesses that you can find, like the ones that you've got up there now, is you got to get into position. You got to think about where you place the operative straight up, and it depends on the map that we're playing, and also what points you want to score. So if you've got a crit op that you're trying to achieve, you need to think about where your positioning is and what you're going to do with your different shooters in that. Like I said about your tac op, how you're going to achieve that, and shooters can definitely do that really well. And I mean, kill op is a great way. I think shooters can get that straight away. Your kill ops, shooting from afar is much easier than going into melee against some elites.
Yeah, it definitely allows you to trade, more favorably in terms of you're not committing someone to combat where they've got just as good a chance of dying as the other guy does. Shooting gives you
Yeah.
that opportunity to just take someone down and kind of turn that numbers game in your favor to a degree.
Yeah. And I think if you set yourself up with your position and where you are, if you can shoot and then move away, I think that's really good defensively as well. Being able to move away from the position you just shot at, so that someone, an enemy operative, is maybe out of range for a charge or for their own shoot action.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
That comes into that, like, having a bit of a game plan, ensuring that your positionings, like, you want to position so you can take the shot but not be compromised in taking that
Yeah.
shot, in a sense.
Yeah. I think that's been the biggest learning curve that I've had, is trying to understand where my operatives need to be positioned, and then what do I want that operative to do? Are they going to be in there to achieve the crit up, or are they going to be there achieve the attack up or the kill up? So shooters can definitely be able to be very flexible in that way.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing with the shooting I've seen, I prefer shooting teams usually, is that, like, you can pressure a point, like, you can pressure a side of the map. If there's a side
Yeah.
of the map with, like, good vision and good visibility, and you've got, like, a sniper or two that can just be there and cover that side, then it really pressures the opponent to, to walk on the other side of the board or work with the other side of the board. Because ultimately, like, this game's all about controlling points and objectives, right? Like, that's how you score points. You can go for the kill up as often as you want, but if you're not able to guarantee kill things at a better rate than you can get killed or be killed, then it comes down to kind of control and board control. So the shooting definitely allows for that. You're probably going to want to pick a team that, if you're going for this style, that has one or two units that can reliably run to the points and hold them whilst you're shooting over them. But yeah, at the end of the day, shooting's definitely a pretty nuanced game, because with the conceal and engage system of Kill Team, you really need to be able to bring things like Seek Light or Seek, which is pretty rare, but it can be very handy in this situation. You're going to want to exploit Vantage as often as possible, but in some maps like Volcus, the Vantage can feel a little underwhelming when everybody's hidden behind heavy terrain. So you do need to consider the fact that, like, you want to get you guys up there. They're going to have cover from the Vantage itself, but they're generally going to be engaged, which means you're only going to get a cover save if someone's shooting back. And a lot of the time, you're not going to have the kind of targets you want, because of the fact that there's heavy in the way and they're on conceal or whatever. So definitely, it is a risky game style, because it can also mean that you just kind of play cagey and defensively and don't actually score many points, which may or may not hurt you in like a tournament setting, where maybe you're not only trying to secure wins but trying to secure point differences. But if you're, oops, sorry, go for it.
You're fine with that to support, getting those points. A lot of shooting teams will take the smoke grenades to help them have obscure.
Like obscuring, yeah.
Yeah. So just especially when we played the other night, how you use the smoke grenade just to obscure. You're still in a vantage position. I could see you, but it would be no point in shooting you or going to attack you, because you'd have two saves.
Yeah. It's definitely, that's definitely, I think with the shooting teams, a big thing to consider is, you will have to compromise taking maybe the equipment you want for the equipment you need, if that makes sense. But that's definitely something we can touch on as we go along as well, and just making people aware really is the big thing.
And if people are looking for a good shooting team, and they're new, I think Phobos is probably one of the great elite shooting teams.
Phobos is great. A lot of stuff to help you out.
Yeah, and they've got two really strong shooters in that team.
Yeah,
which really helped.
it's a great tip.
Like I played against them and they just obliterated me, especially when they go on guard.
Yeah, and the Gallo.
Yeah,
Another good tip if people are new and they're maybe getting frustrated with shooting teams, because it can be frustrating when you get a piece like this and it doesn't do anything. That's a kill team thing as well. Whereas 40k, you're always going to get to use your Lehman Russes in some way, or your Riptides in some way. You're going to be able to push them out and get them. These rifle guys can potentially not do anything during the game, but it doesn't mean they didn't do anything.
Yeah,
In kind of a fallacy type of way. So if they kind of zone an area off, your opponent might be able to finesse their way around, or they might not go there, or go there in a really suboptimal way to not get shot. So in that way, your rifle didn't do anything directly, but it did slow them down. So you're not always kind of guaranteed to actually be able to use these pieces, and especially if it's got the very restrictive heavy rule like dash, you're really not guaranteed to actually be able to use them.
But you're 100% right. But they do provide a like a deterrent factor for your opponents.
Yeah, but that way they do something. It's kind of a weird catch-22.
Yeah. I've definitely put. I know you've seen this, Nick. I've definitely put units up. Deathmark, for example, and they've just done nothing for 3 turning points except for sit there.
Yeah.
But they have held like a point of their own in terms of just it's too open for anyone to get there. So although they didn't take a shot and they just kind of sat there and they looked useless, as you made your point, they're definitely serving a purpose in that position. Okay, guys, did anyone else have anything to add to shooting? I mean, once again, this is just starting. Like we can definitely get some maps out and draw some fun lines and stuff in later episodes. Was there any other little points though that anyone wanted to add before we move on to melee?
We're good?
Yeah.
No, I think we can move on.
All right, let's do it. So, melee, once again, going back to our scout tracker, the white bread of Kill Team. Fists, 3 attacks, 3+, 3/4 damage. Once again, no fancy weapon rules. This is what we'd consider a very mediocre melee stat. It's gonna do some damage. But the way that melee works in Kill Team is different than the shooting. You basically both roll and then have a dice oppose each other on the way through to doing damage, and you can use successful hits to parry your opponent's successful hits. So when you're only rolling 3 dice, you're very limited in your options, especially if you're attacking second perhaps, where the opponent can then automatically parry one of your hits. You're down to 2, you may be able to get 1 through, and then the opponent may parry the third hit as well, and at that point you've only done 3 or 4 damage for a melee action. So this would be considered, I would think you wouldn't want this guy into melee based on that weapon profile, only to tie somebody up, but we'll go through that. So,
or if they're on maybe low health. If you're confused about melee, just go watch an hour-long video on it, then come back.
We might have to make that video sometime, I guess. So let's
argue.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the Howling Banshee X.
Look at this guy.
Because this guy does stuff. He comes with a number of different options available. Who wants to read this one out? Does anyone want to have a go, or I can?
Brian?
Brian?
Brian's just got some guys
you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Is Brian's got a mouthful of pizza still, or are we good?
Yeah, dude, I just finished it off. I'm so sorry.
type of
No,
pizza
don't be
is it?
sorry. We're
Dude,
putting you on the spot.
A ham and pineapple pizza.
Oh,
classic.
God, chew him up in the comments, get him.
Yeah.
What? Our McCain make the best pizzas.
Oh,
so
McCain
check it
as
out.
well.
Yeah.
Our no Italian subscribers are going to be so furious about this.
Oh, look,
God.
I put a bit of mozzarella on it. That's all right.
Okay.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I don't want that dirty cheddar cheese on there. All right. The Howling Banshee. I'm not even going to worry about the range. We're just going with the.
We're going
the
straight to melee, baby. Let's do it.
Well, I just picked these boys up the other day. I've finished building them. I just got to paint them now.
Lovely.
But the execution there, attacks on 5, hits on 3 up, and damage 3/7. And looking at that, lethal 5+. That just means if you roll a 5 or a 6, it counts as a crit. And so you'll be doing 7 damage if you roll a 5. Really powerful, really good. Mirror swords, even more powerful. 5 at 3 up again. And you got your normal 4, but you crit on a 6. And if you look at the wording here, ceaseless, being able to roll your dice again on, if I recall it, ceaseless is any number
Yeah.
of dice with the same number.
Yeah.
So if you roll 2 fail dice and it's a 2 2s, you get to re-roll those 2 2s again. But then again, it's got lethal 5+ again. So rolling that just gives you an extra chance to roll some crits and do 6 damage each on those crits. So it's just just powerful. And you know, when you're playing against someone else, and you're doing that melee attack, they've only really got, and if you look at that scout squad, probably 3 or 4 attacks in that melee, whereas the Howling Banshee here, he's like a leader, and he's rolling 5 attack dice in this chance of melee. Power weapon, same damage, lethal 5+, and the
Triskele? Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a different wording there. It's got rending, meaning, Nick?
I think you change.
Meaning, if you get a crit, you can turn another hit into a crit.
That's right. That's right.
Crit
So
City.
it depends also what weapons you're going to take with your for your melee as well. Because if you were using someone like the fighter in the Plague Marines, you've only got a flail, so that's all you're going to use. Whereas here with the Howling Banshee, you get to choose which weapon you're going to take, and mostly people would be taking the mirror swords. Just that ceaseless rule is just so powerful.
Mirror swords look good
this
with
is
ceaseless and lethal 5 up.
This is a good point as well to look at. So if you're looking at this going like mirror swords, 4/6, ceaseless lethal 5, okay, executioner 3/7 with 5. Like, what's the point, right? They're basically the exact same. Or maybe you're questioning, like, why do they have such similar damage profiles?
Yeah.
The way it works in the game is you choose what weapons you guys have when you find out what team you're versing. So it gets really important when, say, you're versing Phobos. A lot of those guys have 12 wounds, so the mirror swords look very good against them because you only need 2 crits to really kill someone. So that works. It doesn't work as well, say, if you're going up against Legionnaires, who have 14 wounds. So that's where the Executioner becomes really good because 2 crits for them to kill them. So, and vice versa, it doesn't work as well the mass-wise. Like the mirror swords against Legionary, you need 2 crits in a hit or potentially 3 crits to kill them. So if you're confused about that, just look at your opponent's wounds. Do the mass. If they're on 8 wounds, if they're on 6 wounds, if they're on 14 or 12, this will help you kind of decide how much dice you're going to need to kill them, which is really important for the melee guys when you're going to get in there.
Especially also on the flip side of that, like what your opponent's melee is doing as well. Because you've got 9 wounds, so if you're getting charged and they're slapping on 4s, you can take 2 hits before you die. So you're going to get 1 chance to respond generally. But if you're the one doing the charging, then you're potentially only looking at taking 1 hit. So it comes down to evaluating your hit profile and their health, and then evaluating their hit profile. I've done that the wrong way, and their health. But yeah, definitely. Like I'd say, mirror swords here look good for most matchups, right? Anything with less than 12 health, I think mirror swords would seem to be the way to go.
Yeah, mirror swords are very good. Mirror swords are great against like a lot of things. I'd say the Triskele looks really good against maybe horde teams.
Yeah.
And the execution looks really good against like high wound guys, like stuff like Legionary, stuff like Angels of Death, Plague Marines.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to spend an extra dice when they're on 1
even
wound.
against even against the Hierotech, like that's pretty juicy with their Parentech and Cryptech being think 11 and 14 wounds respectively.
Yeah.
That profile is going to kind of chew it up nicely.
Yeah. And also looking at the Banshee here, this one actually has the ability to do two fight or two shooting actions. And if
Yes.
you're looking at melee, two fighting, that's probably guaranteed 3 hits.
Yeah.
If you definitely, or it's guaranteed 2 hits in. But a third one is most likely because you're rolling 5 dice each action.
Yeah,
So-
and if you've got any, this is another thing where it's like, look at your team's firefight ploys and strategic ploys for balanced weapons, for accurate, for just things like that that will help add on to these weapon profiles, because a lot of the time
Yeah.
teams will have special abilities that are like once per turning point, which will allow you just to boost it up. So if they've got balanced on the mirror swords and you can get balanced, ceaseless, and lethal 5 up, then you're potentially re-rolling 2 or 3 dice then, which could be pretty massive in terms of just guaranteeing a significant amount of damage. When we're looking at melee, I'll run through the strengths real quick and then I'll hand over to someone else maybe for the weaknesses. But melee, you typically have higher damage profiles than the shooting profiles, which is kind of interesting. But you, like, for example, our sniper before was 4 on 2s. With the Howling Banshee here, we've got 5 on 3s, which I think is pretty common for most like melee hitters. And then you've got the similar actual damage outputs, so 4 and 6, for example, with the mirror swords. So if you find that if you need to get rid of guys quickly and to a degree reliably, the melee I think is generally a better path in terms of getting in there and getting the job done. With melee as well, you have the ability to not only fight but choose where you want to fight. With shooting, you have to just take shots when they present themselves. With melee, it's a much more proactive play style where you're actually getting in there. You're choosing when you want to engage to a degree. You're choosing where you want to engage, which is huge as well. Because when it comes to contesting a point, shooters can lock it down, but melee units can get in there and actually score it. So melee is a big part of board movement and board kind of control. Charging as well, with the way that Kill Team works, charging is really important because you can charge into a unit and tie it up, which kind of just means like that unit then has to pay 2 action points to fall back if it doesn't want to engage with you. So if you can get to a shooter like a sniper or something like that, even if you don't have the AP to fight, you can definitely use the APL to charge, and then that shooter will have to waste valuable action points to remove itself from that melee combat. And then there's no shooting into melee combat. So if you're in an area where you've got against a shooting team and they've locked down a pathway, up one side of the board, and you can get a target there, then you can be fully out in the open as long as you're engaged with that target and they can't shoot into your fight. So that just means that like you can effectively use it as a bit of a weird cover scenario where you perhaps charge into that unit and then fall back if you have the APL in the opposite direction, like as in, to move further along the board, and that removes the chance of getting shot, which is kind of wild when you think about it, if you can implement some kind of strategy like that if the opponent gives you the opportunity. Did you guys have any other strengths that you wanted to cover in terms of melee?
Well, if you got 3 APL, you can get in there, charge, attack, and then you can possibly, if you've killed that operative, you can move and get cover or something like that.
I think that would depend on the team, right? Because I think the charge limits it does,
doesn't it? Yeah.
Limits the other movement.
Yeah.
You can also charge multiple units if they've stacked up, which is once again huge, because if you can get 2 or 3 people behind some cover and charge them and get within an inch of all of them, then all of them units then either have to fight you or fall back away from that point, which is just like you might waste 3 activations on an opponent's team, which just gives you so much of an advantage when it comes to that kind of turn sequencing or activation sequencing kind of game.
Yeah. I'll say that, like, for the melee guys, melee people, you might get frustrated in terms of playing melee if you're, say, charging a Space Marine with this Banshee, and maybe you've chosen the Triskeli Slice weapon and you die, and
That's
you're like,
gonna
but I
feel bad.
charged you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's like be careful with your weapon choices, and just remember that some teams can, like, even though you're charging, they can hit back really hard. And if this Banshee isn't on, like, if it's not on full wounds, you could just get, killed straight away, depending on how the dice roll. So just, the melee can be frustrating in terms of maybe you charge and maybe they play a gotcha, and you end up dying. So yeah, just yeah, be careful with your weapons where you're charging into.
yeah. Melee into melee is its own little mini game where it's not. There's no guarantees, I guess. Ultimately, especially if you're going against similar statted units.
Yeah.
With the melee playing cagey, if you're going against a team of solid shooters and you are locked down effectively and you're having a hard time progressing up the board, you're gonna just have to sit there and potentially not score any points, which sucks a lot. So it's definitely a bit of a weakness there, where if you can't get good equipment placement on the kill zone in terms of maybe barricades or something along them lines to help you move up while still in cover, you might find yourself just kind of pinned down and stuck, which is definitely like a feels bad kind of scenario. I think having a team with high movement, like 7 inches plus, can alleviate that to a pretty good degree, because then your charge is a 9-inch charge, which is, I think, almost half of a 22-inch board, if I'm not mistaken. So that's definitely something to consider. You can catch people unawares to a degree of how far you can actually move. But it is a challenge sometimes to, especially on maybe Into the Dark, where you kind of, some of the rooms are a bit of a shooting gallery. It can be hard to progress towards the objectives or towards the enemy team unless you've got the movement to just do it without them being able to contest.
Yeah.
Okay. If we're all good there, we'll move on then to team types.
Onward.
Onward and upward. Okay, so team types, Elite and Horde, are generally the two, I guess, polar opposites. Another team archetype I've heard of is like Toolbox, which just refers to how many kind of tricks and options they've got. But I feel like the Horde teams generally are Toolbox teams because they have the flexibility built into them. Brinesy, you play a lot of Elite teams. Did you want to run through the Elite team kind of points?
Yeah. So roughly they're between 5 and 7 models, and it might seem like that's a downside to the Elite teams, but they're just so strong. Like, if you're playing Legionnaires, they can be 14 wounds, or Plague Marines. When I was playing Angels of Death, you got one who's got 18 wounds. So potentially they look like, smaller number, looks like you're not going to be able to do as well, but you look at the upside, their wounds are so good, and their saves, they're always saving on 3 ups, so that's
Like a 65% save chance.
Yeah, easy rolls there. And your second point there, that just touches on it. They're significantly stronger, so they're able to, they might be able to do their melee stronger. They might be able to do their shooting, or they might have a particular firefight ploy or a strategy ploy that actually boosts them a little bit more. And like, if you make a mistake with them, they're forgiving. So like, well, maybe not against Hyrotech the other night, but if I had my Plague Marine out and it got shot, I can be able to, bring it back and heal it up if I need to.
Even like getting shot, it's like if someone takes an odd shot at you with that kind of 4-on-4 profile, and you're saving 3 rolls on 3, it's just statistically better stats. So it's kind of like you can kind of take a shot or two accidentally almost, compared to like a smaller operative, where that shot would be devastating. Like, it might be half
Yeah.
their wounds gone and they're injured. But for an
Yeah,
elite,
that's
you just kind of, it's just a scratch, and they just kind of shake it off and keep going. So
Yeah, and I guess that your next point there about the play style, you can just play over. You can keep doing the same sorts of things with these operatives over and over, and you're going to have fun with it. And you're going to learn something new every time you play them. The it can be a lot harder to kill an elite, and you would say maybe 2 to 3 operatives to try and kill one elite.
yeah,
Or the opposite way around, one elite to try and kill 2 or 3 operatives, enemy operatives. It is pretty good there. I think that the strong thing about the elite team is if they've got the wording there, Astartes, they have 3 APL, and 3 APL compared to 2 APL is
yeah,
really, really good.
It's
I mean, Turning Point 1 can be really challenging because you want to try and use all 3 APL. Sometimes it doesn't. You can't even do anything in Turning Point 1. You're just setting up. But when you get to Turning Point 2, 3, and 4, 3 APL is a big boost compared to 2 APL.
yeah. It's the
Yeah.
charge, or sorry, the reposition, shoot, and then dash back into cover is
Yeah,
is
or-
just huge, because it's like you create a chance where you're shooting somebody and not giving the opposition a chance to shoot you back, which is pretty massive ultimately.
Yeah, or charging in there and getting 2 melee hits, or
Yeah.
getting 2 shoot actions. It's really powerful.
Or the old charge fight and then kill the operative and then shoot the next one. Like,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, you can throw a grenade in there,
yeah,
a
yeah,
crack grenade or a frag grenade, or even just a stun grenade just to get it off,
yeah,
and then charge in and then do a melee attack or shoot, whatever. I think that's the really good thing. You can be really flexible there.
yeah,
It can feel like you're being overwhelmed if you're playing against a horde kill team, but if you play it right, which I haven't been.
You're doing great, dude.
Oh, thanks, mate. I'm learning every time, but getting up the board, completing some objectives, especially attack ops, can be really powerful with the elite teams. The other thing is that you can also set up for your counteract. So, getting an extra shot in on a team that has 10 to 13 models, operatives, that you're able to at least have 1, maybe 2 counteracts there.
Yeah, other teams are not going to be able to. Whole teams are just not going to ever be able to counteract, whereas the elite teams will. It's a rule
Yeah.
they get.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just
and you can.
it's just so powerful.
The elites generally counteract from conceal, which is another just
Yeah,
huge
all
bonus.
Astartes, yeah. Any
Yeah.
Astartes guys will just do it anyway. They can just do whatever, really. They don't have any rules.
So when I put up their favors repetitive playstyle, what I was kind of getting at was that when you play the elites, you seem to just be able to have a plan, and that plan doesn't necessarily need to change based on who you're playing. So with particular horde teams, like horde into horde or horde into elites, you have to play a very different game generally, because
Yeah.
who you're playing against differs significantly. With elites, because you've only got the 6 models or 5 or 6 models, generally it's kind of like, okay, I need to spread them out to a degree to cover what areas of the board I want to go for, and then I just need to send them forward and kill things. Like, it's a lot less of like, okay, I need to set this guy up here to give this guy 1 APL, and then the comms guy's got to go over there so he can give that guy the shooting command. And the elites the horde becomes like a fine dance of like positioning and engaging the correct units at the correct times to maximize your value. But the elites are just like, all right, I move up, I shoot, I fight, I charge, I cap the point. It's a lot less of the kind of 3D chess, I guess, compared to some of the more nuanced horde based teams. And then in terms of scoring priorities, what I was kind of going there is that the elites are just like, okay, they're going to be able to contest points. They're not going to mind being thrown into melee. They're when it comes to their attack ops, they're very capable of scoring them generally. They don't have the kind of same struggles that like a low movement, low wound team would have, for example, or perhaps a team like the Mandrakes that has plenty of movement but is kind of fragile when it gets into combat and melee combat. So it's definitely a matter of like pick what objectives you think are achievable and then just go and do them. You don't really have to worry as much about the kind of nuances that some of the other teams might have to cover. And then the counteracts is huge, right? Like everyone loves getting to counteract. Counteract doesn't necessarily mean shooting or fighting. It can be a 2-entry position, it can be activating a point, it can be any one AP action. So it could be closing a door. Counteracts become pretty important ultimately when utilized correctly, and when you're going up against a team with 5 or 6 more activations than you've got, you're potentially getting to do 4 additional actions, which can be pretty massive ultimately. So, yeah, Elite's definitely, I think if it's kind of like, if you're newer to the game and you don't want to have to think about as much and, you know, get caught out on positioning and things like that, starting with an Elite team's definitely a strong idea, favorable idea. They're going to slap in shooting, they're going to slap in melee, they're going to be able to take a few hits, and you don't have to worry about your positioning as much. A good example of that would be on Into the Dark with the blast rules. It's like everyone that can bring blast is gonna bring blast, because if you've got 12 operatives, they're gonna have to stack at doorways. Whereas the elites, you could just put one at each door and not have to worry about blast at all. So there's definitely like a less of a learning curve, I believe, with an elite team rather than a horde team. I think the difficulty kind of scales every time you add an extra operative to your team.
Yeah.
Nick, did you want to run us through the horde teams?
Let's go. We're hording. Horde teams, so it's usually like 10 plus. The death capacity, I think you even have more than this.
I think they're up to 14.
13.
Yeah.
They're insane.
Yes.
So many guys. You will find a lot of these models will be a lot less compared to the elite teams, and they will have more basic profiles like the fists and the bolt guns and las rifles.
I've definitely.
I just have a sprinkling.
Sorry, dude. I was going to say I've definitely got some cards we'll bring up in a second, and we can definitely go through all them differences.
Awesome. Yeah, so a bit weaker, but they'll have like a little bit more abilities on each of your cards. So that's where Nick and Brian's said like the elite teams are a bit more easy to pilot, because otherwise you're dealing with 13 cards which all have abilities on them, which can be a lot to manage. And you just want to be, if you are playing other hordes, it's quite technical, it can be more technical, and when you're going into elites, you just have to worry about trading. So that basically means like how many models of yours is it taking to kill an elite team of 6.
Yeah.
So if you have 14 and it takes 1, if you somehow get 1 with 1, then that's great, because now that elite guy is down 1 and you're only down 1, and it's a lot worse for him than it is for you. So that's where that comes in.
Yeah, that becomes like a 5 into 13 rather than a 6 into 14, which you know, maths wise starts to really add up.
The other thing I'll add is that there is a little in between here, which we have the 2.5 teams, as we say, because the whole team's always APL 2.
Yep.
And the elite teams are usually almost always APL 3. Well, they are, I guess, AP 3. And the in between would be like the 2.5s or the pseudo APL 3 or the pseudo elite teams. So that's guys like Wreckers, a little bit of higher attack.
Elves, I think elves.
Elves, Corsairs.
Yeah.
So Corsairs is one, for example, where it's 9 people, and they'll have AP2, but they can dash for free. So that's what we would call pseudo AP3. So that's another example of it. So, you know, maybe if you don't want to play the Horde, but you also don't want to play the Elite, you can look for a pseudo AP3 or AP 2.5 type of team. And that's somewhere in between. So it's like, you know, maybe 8 models, 7 models, a little bit in between, and you have to kind of work to get that extra APL.
Yeah, perfect. I've definitely found, like with the Tau for example, starting out, I just didn't understand any of it. And now when I look through the list, it makes a lot more sense because, like I was saying, even with the Death Guard team that we have here on this card, you can see there that it has a medic, a sniper, spotter, and then a Vox operator. So generally, like, you'll have a comms unit that will provide one extra APL to another unit. The spotter units will generally provide like Seek or something along them lines to another unit, and then the medics can heal another unit if they're in the correct position. So that's what I was kind of mentioning about before, where it's like the Horde teams have lots of operatives, but they all need to be in the right positions to support the other operatives that they're kind of like aligned with, for example, sniper and spotter. So it becomes very tricky, like, and nuanced to get that right. And so it might take, 15 or 20 games before you start to feel like, oh, okay, I finally get exactly where I've got to place these guys, exactly how to maximize all their value. There's nothing worse, trust me, than leaving the 1+ APL guy too far away from your other operatives and just not being able to provide that APL bonus to somebody, or this sniper, for example, and the spotter, where the spotter's just been left kind of behind due to positioning, and all of a sudden, your sniper can't take them Seek light shots, for example. So definitely a little bit more to consider with the Horde teams. Let's have a look at their stat profiles. I believe here we've got our scout tracker in the center again, our white bread operative. Once again, Scout Tracker is what Nick was mentioning with that kind of pseudo elite, where you've got slightly better save, slightly more wounds, and the same kind of APL and movement as the Horde, but nowhere near as good as the elite still. So, as Brian, you were saying before, stats-wise, elites will typically have 3 APL, so they're doing 3 actions per activation. 6-inch move is pretty standard, but I think the Phobos, for example, come with 7, so that can go higher. And the Plagues have 5, if I'm not mistaken, which can be a little bit lower. So 6 is the average. Saves are generally always 3 up. I'm not sure if there's any that aren't. And then wounds would be between 12 and above. Generally 14, though. Elites typically have what we'd consider basically a passive ability, which in this case is just an Infernal Pact. I've picked the warrior archetypes for this because they're the bread and butter of the teams. They're the most basic, so it gives you a bit of a more structured baseline, I guess, compared to picking like a leader or something along them lines. So yeah, as you can see, the stat profiles are just nice. It's like everything you want to have in an operative. When we get to the Horde guy, our little Death Corps trooper over here. So as you can see, we're rolling as many dice generally, but we're not hitting as often, and our damage is lower. So it just means that we need more guys to get the same results as what we would with the elite, which is 4 on 3, 3, 4. We've got 4 on 4, 2, 3, which just feels bad. Compared, it's very much like the haves and the have-nots. So we've got 2 APLs with the Death Corps Trooper, 6-inch movement, 5+ save, which is a 30% chance to save. Not great. So if you're rolling 3 dice on 30% chance, the odds of getting 2 or more saves are pretty low ultimately. And then 7 wounds. So almost any shooting profile in the game, almost any, will kill the 7 wounds just about every single time. So if that guy's out there and can be shot, he's going to go down. And it's same with melee, pretty much. He's going to go down before he can do the damage back. So when it comes to the Horde teams, or the more operative teams, you really need to support the operatives with other operatives. You need to consider them to be little kind of subgroups, where you run 2 or 3 of them together, or get 2 or 3 of them to do the same job, because they just cannot compete. Even if you hit all 4 hits with the trooper there, and they're all crits, you're going to do 12 damage, which is still not enough to kill an elite. So yeah, you can get lucky and still not get the job done effectively. So did you guys have anything else you wanted to add in relation to profiles or anything like that?
No, I don't
Looks
think
good
so.
to me.
Ben.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think we can start to summarize, guys. We've got to move on to our final slide here. So, what I'll do is I'll run through these real quick, and then we can just have a brief discussion, I guess, if there's anything else we want to add. But generally, understand your strengths and weaknesses and how to apply them. So, have you got good shooting profiles? If you do, you obviously want to make use of that, vice versa for melee. Understanding your opponent's strengths and weaknesses. A lot of the time, going into a match, just get a look at their profiles, their operative profiles, and just see what they can do. Have they got piercing on all their weapons? Do they have seek light, for example? If they do, maybe the light barricades aren't going to be a good choice. Can they slap in melee? Okay, stay away from them then if that's going to be the case. Have a game plan, but then identify if enemy operatives can just trample that game plan to pieces. And if they can, try and come up with one that favors your strengths. So that becomes really important with the TAC op selection. If you're going to choose a TAC op and you're a shooting team, plant beacons is going to be dangerous if you're facing a melee team and the melee team could just come in and stomp the guy that's going to try and plant your beacon, as you move up the board. If you've got something like contain, then the shooting teams might be able to lock down that midline, and your opposition just can't, encroach on your half at all. That could be a much better solution to that problem. When you engage or you go to trade, use your dice profiles and your weapon rules to evaluate your chance of success. So what I mean there is are you shooting on threes and you have piercing? You're probably going to get a hit or two in. That seems like a reasonable thing to shoot at that point. If you don't, then don't make that shot. It's better to just sit there and activate a unit generally than it is to try and risk one and potentially lose it. Engage or bait, making trades. What you're doing is you're putting an operative out there to potentially lose it. So what's that opportunity cost going to be? Are you going to kill the unit? What are the odds of you killing it? If it's not a good trade, then don't do it at the end of the day. Try and get your opponent to force that trade instead when it suits you. But in saying that, you can win with no operatives or you can lose with all of them. Scoring matters more than staying alive. So if it's a trade that's going to let you activate a point and get a CP, and you might lose a unit because of it, it could be worth it, right? Because then it prevents the opponent from taking that point. And it also, makes them waste turn attacking that unit, which might put them on engage, and it might give you another opportunity later in that turning point to take a shot back. So, points are the aim of the game ultimately. Don't feel like, just staying back on your back line and playing super defensively is going to win you the game, because a lot of the time you might have all your operatives left, but you don't gain anything from it because you've scored nothing. Horde teams need operatives to synergize together. If you can take out key pieces on a Horde team, you're going to really cripple them. There's definitely some units that you can get rid of, and they're going to just, be the linchpin of that team. I think with the new team Sanctifiers, it's their, what's the name of the guy, Nick? Do you know? It's definitely
the sermon guy.
The sermon dude. The preacher. So if you can take him out, then all of a sudden they lose a lot of their steam. And same with the Death Corps with their field commander or whatever his name is that gives the orders. If you can take that guy out, then all of a sudden they lose a lot of bonuses. So try and look for the key pieces when going into Horde teams. Try and identify the key operatives, and them trading with that operative is going to be much better than training with a trooper. So try and, it might be a risk to one of your pieces to get out there and kill it, but if you can, that might be what you need to turn the game. Low armor save. So saves of 3 up allow you just to survive shooting profiles. If you're saving on 3s and the enemy has shooting profiles of 4 up, like 4 on 4, you should feel pretty confident, especially if you can maintain cover saves or obscuring, to just do whatever you want to do and not have to worry too much about shooting. However, if you've got piercing from the opposition team or something along them lines, then you're obviously going to have to be a lot more careful about how you position and move up the board. So just have a look at that, try and do the math in terms of what the odds are of taking hits. Obviously, dice are dice, and you can, take 3 crits or take no hits. It's very hot and cold sometimes. But statistically, you should be able to consider, for example, with Brainsey's Plague Marines, there's a couple of shots where Brainsey can just walk away from that without taking a single scratch of damage. And even if he does, he can just heal it up again later anyway. So try and, sometimes it's worth taking a shot for a couple of damage if it means you can cap a point, for example. And some shooting profiles just, you really don't have to sweat about as much. And then high melee profiles make the high wound models less scary. So into elites, bringing that, what was that gun? The melee weapon we saw before, 3-7 with lethal 5 up, rolling 5 dice. I'd throw that guy into an elite. The executioner, yeah. I'd throw that guy into an elite. He's probably going to kill the elite. He might die.
Most likely.
But he's gonna severely hamper it. So definitely
the trading comes in.
The trading's super important. It's definitely something to consider when you're new and you're making decisions within the game. Okay, let's just have a quick chat then. Is there anything else you guys think when it comes to strengths, weaknesses, shooting, melee, horde versus elite, just that whole kind of like looking at the team, looking at the opposition team? Is there anything you'd like to add there?
I guess as we do more of these, if we're successful and you guys aren't trolling us out there, we can go through a little bit more. I felt like when you were talking there, Nick, there's a lot more to unpack.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot more to unpack to understand.
This is the road to 1,000, guys. 1,000 apps.
Yes, yeah.
1,000? Oh my god, the history of China isn't even at 290 yet.
One of our favorite podcasts.
We can really stretch this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm probably going to be like 50.
We're not even in the Kingdom style.
There is a lot to learn though. Like it's definitely one of these games where it's like we played for 3 months and we're like, okay, I think we've got the hang of this, and then we went and played against other people and we just got slapped, and it was very much like, oh, we don't know anything. So there's a lot of depth, there's a lot of nuance. I definitely think we'll dive into more of it as we go along. The next episode,
let us know in the comments what you guys want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. What you've got problems with.
And if anything, just pick a team that you like the look of as well.
Like the look of.
Yeah.
A lot of teams are coming quite bespoke, so it's a lot of niche within a faction. So, of course, there's the Space Pirates within the Eldaris. And that's what we're going to see as we're moving forward. Like, we're not going to see so much of, like, Khorne. We're going to see a specific unit within Khorne, like the Goremongers. So we're going to get to, like, really specific niches. So just play what looks cool. A lot of the newer teams are going to obviously be, I think, a little bit more competitive, a little bit more around, and they're going to have kind of the style of what they're going for with the newest edition. And, just in case you watch this whole video, if you're playing with squares and triangles, you're on the wrong edition.
Yes, that's actually, you're 100% right, Nick. Coming into this game and Googling things, if it's not from November 2024 or onwards, you're reading the wrong thing. So
you're not the right game.
Yeah. The editions seem to have really shifted the envelope in terms of the rules. Just be really mindful. We kept looking up rules that were old and outdated, and just having the wrong rules because we didn't really want to commit to the rule book. It's $100, which in Australian, which is it's not nothing. It's a whole kill team. What would you rather do? Buy a new kill team or buy the rule book?
Yeah.
So absolutely. And we're so used to games where the rules are free. It's fascinating. Games Workshop's monetization scheme, but I guess that would be one big thing. I've bought a rulebook now. Nick owns a rulebook. We're sharing it between the 4 of us. Buy a rulebook between you and your friends, even if you all chip in, just so you know that you're referring to the correct rules. The rulebook's, I think, 150 pages long, roughly, and there's only about 15 of them that actually matter. So there's not a lot in there to get through to understand the game, but it is a different game than the 2023 Kill Team, and it's a different game from the other older versions. So definitely try and make sure you're reading the correct rules. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time if you play outside people.
We'll just go to a local store and just Get a game with someone.
Yeah, ask if someone's got the rulebook. Take 15 photos of the pages that actually matter, and then play a game and get out of there. Horrible advice from us, but yeah.
No, I don't think so. I mean, like Nick said, we're in a housing crisis.
Yes, yeah.
Inflation and
$100 for that book it's a nice book, but give me a soft cover copy for 40, or just give me a light book with
Without
just
all
the
the law.
rules. Give me a competition rule book where it just has the 20 pages I actually need, not 100 pages of fluff.
that's right.
But yeah, okay. All right, excellent, guys. If there's nothing else, then we'll end there. And we'll catch you.
Are we gonna have like an outro music?
Well,
Sure.
thanks for coming to the Party Mansion. Cue
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. I think we're called Settling Scores, aren't we?
Yes, Settling
Yeah.
Scores Party Mansion Edition.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Roll deep. Guys,
Settle
just
scores.
remember to the catchphrase, everyone, roll deep.
That's from
Settle
from
scores.
ChatGPT.
Don't say that, Brian. See, we're
We're
have to
out-
monetize it.
We're outsourcing everything.
That's right.
Excellent. All right, catch you around.
Laters.
Laters.